Wow, man. Wow. All I can say is wow. So real quick, I'm sitting here, right? And I'm uh getting some things done online and doing my thing, right? And this man walks up to me, and he says, "Can I talk to you for a minute?" And I says, "Yes, yes, we can talk." And he says, "You mind if I sit down?" I said, "Yeah, you can sit down." And so we're having a conversation, and he says, "If you were at the gates of heaven and an angel asked you why should you be allowed into the kingdom, what would you say?" And I said, interesting question because I don't think about that much. But, one, let me start with by saying that decision isn't up to the angel. And he started laughing. He says, "Yes, it's really up to God." And I said, "Yes, that decision wouldn't be up to the angel. But if I had to answer it, um, I would keep it short and simple with saying, well, I'm pretty sure he already knows why I should be allowed in because I have been doing his works, right? I've been reading, I've been studying, I've been incorporating the scripture into my life and how I live and the places I go, the people I keep myself around. I started a YouTube channel and things like that. So um, I've been doing my best to live and do as he wants me to do to the best of my ability, wholeheartedly, since I've decided to take this journey. When I was younger, I didn't know. I've always prayed. I've always had some form of relationship with God, but I didn't know what to do on my own. Going when your family takes you to church and things like that, you don't really know. But as I've gotten older, and I wanted to do things better and be better and have a better life, and just feel better ultimately about who I am and the mission that I'm supposed to complete. Um, I would say that, right? And he laughed again. And he said, "You know what? That's actually good." And then he gave me a little booklet, and he said, "Read this prayer. Read it with your heart." And I did. I did. It's really something that I say to myself every morning. It's a prayer that I pray all throughout the day. But I said, you know what? I'm enjoying this. I'm enjoying the fact that this random man just came up to me, and he said he's a former pastor, but he said he's also a sinner. And I said, well, we're all sinners. We're all going to fall short of the glory of God. We're all going to make mistakes. And he says, you're right. You're right. So I listened more than I spoke because I just wanted to hear what he had to say. I wanted to hear what words he was going to speak over me. And, because some people can speak evil over you, in a nice way. So I really paid attention to what he had to say and the energy that he had. And I can tell that he was sincere. And once I finished telling him what I had to say, he says, that is beautiful. And you're right. I don't know you, but you seem to be on the right path. So I said, yeah, I have a YouTube page. Like I said, I'd like to send you to my channel. And he says, oh, I don't have phone. Yeah, I have phone, but I don't use YouTube or anything like that. And I says, oh, okay, that's fine, But Pastor Lynn, that's what he said his name was, Pastor Lynn. And he said he's retired now, but he was pastoring for over 30 years at a small church and stuff like that. So I said, awesome, that's beautiful, And brief conversation, maybe about 20 minutes, a half hour. Went fast, but I just was so intrigued by um, him just coming to sit down with me and us have a conversation out of nowhere about God. And, and I said the Elohim or Yeshua or whatever name you would like to use for him, Jesus Christ, And he says, are you Christian? Are you Islam? I said, no, just a true believer. I claim no religious background, just a true believer in the Creator. That's all. And it was real interesting, man, real interesting. And he says, you know what? Thank you, thank you for allowing me to speak to you. And I said, thank you for sitting down with me. I didn't know what to expect, but it turned out to be a good thing. And I don't deny the creation. I don't deny his power because I know what he does in my life. I'm the only one that can see what he does in my life. So, um, pretty cool guy. Pretty cool guy, man. You know, he says he goes around. He went straight. I don't know which way he went because going straight that way is going out of the back of the mall. I don't know which way he went, but he says he goes around and he speaks to people about God and he shares things and he just tries to do the works and bring people to the kingdom. And I said, you know what? We're on the same mission. We're on the same mission. I don't evangelize. I don't go around to people, but I speak to people through YouTube. I speak to people through my channel. I speak to people through my Facebook, my Instagram. Not so much as the other platforms, but mainly YouTube. And I gave them the name of my channel, and I told them to look me up. You'll remember my face. I'll come right up and subscribe, and maybe you'll hear something that you like. And he said, you know what, thank you. And we shook hands, and then he walked off. So maybe because I'm getting ready to get up and move around. So maybe I'll see him again. Maybe I won't. But I wanted to take a picture with him and bring some awareness to who he is and the works that he's doing. But he didn't want to do that. He was okay with not doing that. And I said, okay, man, just look me up and, comment on the video, let me know that it's you so I don't forget you. Maybe, Yeshua or the Elohim or God or Jesus Christ, whatever name you like to use, maybe he will bring us back together again. Maybe it was meant for me to meet you so we can collab and do some other works, do some works together. Who knows what this transaction meant? This transaction of energy actually meant. So that was really, really dope. I really, really appreciated that. That made me feel good. I'm sure it made him feel good. The fact that I was willing to receive his message and that he was willing to receive the little bit that I gave him. But like I said again, I listened to him more than I spoke. And he was very sincere, And then he said, read this. When he asked me to read the prayer, I read it with my heart because it's words that I use, it's words that I speak over myself every day. And I don't deny the creation. I don't deny God's power. I don't deny anything about God because I see what he does in my life personally. I can't speak for anyone else, but I see what he does in my life personally. I have witnessed his power firsthand in my own life, But like I said, I can't speak for anyone else. So real dope. I thought I'd jump on again and talk about that because I really want to take a picture with this brother. And the whole time he's talking, I'm like, man, I wish I had like my setup and all that stuff like that so we can actually sit down and talk about this, over a live or over a recorded video. So, and that gave me the motivation to sit down with other people. So I think that's the direction that I'm going to start to go in as well. Talking to other people, getting their viewpoints on the kingdom and how to make it to the kingdom and what we should do, how we should go about it, reading, studying, praying. I need to really start interacting with other people on camera. So, other people or you guys can see these transactions, these random transactions, of energy. So real dope, real interesting, not a long conversation. Another brother out here doing the work, and what he does is hard because not everybody's going to want to hear that and receive that. So what he's doing is much harder because you actually have to ask people for their time and see if they're willing to receive a good message. So, and I'm sure he's going to come across a lot of demons. I just don't want to hear that. They don't want to talk about that. They just don't believe in God or anything like that. Narcissists, they don't believe in God. They think God is a joke. It's all crap to them, So he's going to run into people like that with that kind of spirit. So prayers go out to him, that he's safe, that he's protected, and that he is able and willing to continue to do the works from this point out, because tomorrow is another thing. You know, tomorrow is tomorrow. You know, but today he seems to be okay. But tomorrow's tomorrow. We don't know what tomorrow brings. You know. So just jumping on to talk about that real quick, and he just left. Literally right two 2 minutes uh, before I started to record this, he walked off. So I just thought I'd jump on to share that interaction just now, man. Really dope. But he didn't want to be on film. He didn't want to take a picture or anything. Just wanted to just organically talk, which was awesome. So stay in prayer, stay moving, stay motivated. You know, you never know. You see how that just happened? You never know what God is going to do in your life. You never know the reinforcements He might send to your life. You never know what kind of people you will meet in your journey. You never know what will be sent your way by God's kingdom and Satan's kingdom as well. You know, you have to have your armor on. You have to have your protection on, because you don't know what can come your way. You know, but the thing is, we have to have our discernment strong. We have to have our eyes open to know, to be able to separate the good from the bad, and the ones who are sent to throw you off, and the ones that are sent to uh, push you forward. So again, just like I said, it's a really dope transaction of energy just now. Really good conversation, and I'll leave it there. And I'm out.